On the evening of the 2nd of April, 1968, two mechanics were working late at a bus garage in the Zeitoun district of Cairo. They were not Christian. They were not looking for a miracle. They were finishing a shift. One of them looked and saw a woman in white standing on the roof of the Coptic church across the street near the edge of the dome. He thought she was a nun. He thought she was about to jump. He shouted at her not to. He called the police. And this is how it began, not with a visionary, not with a saint, not with a child in a field, with two working men yelling at a rooftop because they thought someone was about to die. People came out into the street to see what the shouting was about. The police arrived and tried to move them along, explaining that it was a reflection from the street lamps. Then the church custodian said what everyone was already thinking, that he said it was the Virgin Mary. The first appearance lasted only a few minutes. A week later, on the 9th of April, she came again, and then she kept coming for nearly 3 years. The descriptions are remarkably consistent across thousands of witnesses, which is itself part of why Church took it seriously. A figure of a woman, formed of light, standing above the domes of the church, sometimes a full figure, sometimes a bust, sometimes kneeling before the cross on the dome, sometimes with her arms extended in blessing over the crowd below. She was often preceded by strange luminous doves, shapes of the light in the form of birds, moving at speed across the sky above the church, appearing and vanishing. They did not behave like birds. There was incense in the air with no source. There were showers of light like falling glitter. Some appearances lasted minutes, others lasted more than 2 continuous hours, and in nearly 3 years, across hundreds of nights, she never once spoke. Not a single word, no message, no secret, no prophecy, no instruction. She appeared silently above a church in a poor district of Cairo, and she blessed the people standing in the street. The crowds grew until they filled the streets. Estimates run from hundreds of thousands into the millions over the course of the apparitions. They were not only Copts. Muslims came in enormous numbers and stood in the street, chanting the verses that honors Mary. Egypt in 1968 was a wounded country. The defeat of the previous year was still raw. Something happened in those years that people who were in there described as the whole city standing together in the dark, looking up at the same thing. Catholic nuns at the Sacré-Cœur ordered, witnessed it, and sent a report to the Vatican on the 28th of April. An envoy from Rome came, saw it himself, and reported to Pope Paul VI. Bishop Athanasius of Venezuela stood in the street the entire night of the 29th of April, documenting what he saw. Pope Carlos VI appointed a committee of bishops and senior clergy to investigate men whose job it was to be skeptical. And then something happened that almost never happens. The Egyptian state investigated too. This was Nasser's Egypt, a a secular socialist government with no interest whatsoever in confirming a Christian miracle. They looked for a trick. They shut off the electricity across a wide radius around the church to eliminate any possibility of projection or reflection. The apparitions continued in the dark. The government's own investigation found no explanation and no deception. Nasser himself is reported to have come to see it. On the 4th of May 1986, the Coptic Orthodox Church issued its official statement. The papal declaration described appearances in clear form on many nights, witnessed by thousands of citizens and foreigners of different religions, and noted that the accounts agreed so completely in description, form, time and place that the matter stood above reasonable doubt. The Catholic Patriarch of Alexandria affirmed it, so did the head of the Protestant evangelical ministries in Egypt. Airlines reported they could not meet the demand for flights into Cairo. There is one more detail, and for Copts, it is the heart of the whole thing. The church at Zeitoun stands on the road toward Mataraya, on the route that tradition holds the Holy Family traveled during their flight into Egypt, when Herod sought the child's life and they came here as refugees. 19 centuries earlier, a frightened young mother carried her son along that road, a foreigner in a country not her own, with nowhere to stay. And in 1968, on that same road, she came back and stood in the light above a church over a poor and anxious city and said nothing at all. She only blessed them through the prayers of the Theotokos. Lord, grant us your mercy. Amen.